welcome to another episode of the Play Loud podcast. I am your host, Malcolm Ford. Joining me today is a very special guest. He is one of the founding members of the VLA, the current director of operations, founder and setter of the Phoenix Ascension, as well as the head men's volleyball coach at Park University. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Mr. Vincent Zanzucchi.
Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate you bringing me on here, and I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, we really appreciate you coming on, taking the time out of your busy schedule with the VLA, the Ascension, as well as Park University. So we really appreciate you coming in.
Yeah, right now I'm actually at Park, and my boys are here in study hall right now, so figured I can get some work done myself.
Are they actually studying right now, or are they just goofing around?
Yeah, probably goofing around more than studying. I got a few guys that might be studying in there, but yeah, they work hard, so I feel like I can trust them.
All right, yeah, we'll just go with their studying. So, Vince, tell the audience, a little bit about your background, and a little bit more about you.
But yeah, as far as played high school volleyball in Arizona at Hamilton High School. I was actually a 3-sport athlete, played football, basketball, and volleyball. And volleyball was just kind of something you did on the side, right? Like just to kind of stay. It was either that or track, And so, we sure wasn't going to show up to that. And and actually funny because I had a lot more success in football and basketball. And then somehow volleyball ended up sticking. I think I won 3 matches my entire high school career from sophomore to senior. And so the fact that I'm here with doing all that I've done with volleyball is kind of surprising if you look at that track record to start. But no, I mean, I ended up sticking with it and playing, and I ended up playing in college at Santa Monica College. Worked my way to play in Europe. I played in Germany for 3 years for SC Schutorf. And so I had a pretty decent career there, and then came back to the States, got married, and the PVL started up. And so jumped into playing there. Played with Arizona Sizzle for a couple years before the PVL folded, and MVA started up and joined the MVA, played there for a few years. And then once things kind of became subjective there, myself, Volleyball, Will Foley, Tim Faulkner, Chris Hosley, Coley Polakowski, Rob Sinclair, we decided that it was time to kind of go a different direction. And so we created the VLA in 2019, and that's kind of where we're at now.
Yeah, we're very appreciative of you coming up with the VLA. Let's backtrack a little bit about your playing days coming up in high school as well as college. How did you become a setter? What made you choose that position?
It's funny because I started off my sophomore year of high school as a setter, and then my junior and senior year, all the seniors graduated, and I pretty much had a lot of underclassmen that were playing on my team. And I hated the fact I was actually a middle after that because and the reason I started swinging middle because I hated looking at everyone's lined up outside ready to toss the ball, and there's one other guy standing in the middle line. I'm like, I'll just go here and hit. I'll hit more often. And so I started swinging in the middle a little bit, and I love to block, and I love to hit, and you don't have to worry about. Well, actually, back then it was year 2000, 2001, and we still had let serves. You couldn't pass with your hands. What I mean? So, and there's no liberos at that time. So
Oh,
so I had to actually play all the way around as a middle, so which was pretty cool. And so my senior year actually was a middle setter. We ran a 6-2 out of the middle. And again, we had 3 wins my whole high school career. So it says a lot about what we were doing there. But yeah, so actually when I moved on, I played middle, and then I started playing a lot of beach. And it wasn't until I joined U of A alumni team, a guy named Brian Bowers, who was a former Rutgers alumni. The other guy, Steve Walker, who's actually the head women's beach coach at University of Arizona. Both of them had a team, and they picked me up, and I was a middle. And they're like, "Yeah, you're not a middle. You're 6'1", And I actually could pass decent, so they actually moved me to the outside. And so I started playing outside hitter for them. And then I ended up playing college as an outside as well. I actually, my best friend was going to Santa Monica College, and he was like, "Hey, you want to come too?" They said that they're looking for players, and so I followed him to an open gym one time, played, and he was a setter. I was an outside, so I played outside and then played outside through in Germany as well. And it wasn't until uh, I felt that I was not really going to make it to the first league in Germany. We're in Bundesliga too, but I didn't think that I was strong enough as an outside hitter to go up to the first division team. So then the next year I gave it a run at setter. I switched back to setter and played a little bit in Cyprus, and then it didn't work out throughout that season, so ended up coming back. But I didn't fully transition to setter to being a setter on a high level like the VLA level until 2018 is when I finally made the switch. Yeah. So I played outside hitter all up until then, even throughout PVL and MVA days. I was actually an outside hitter.
So you mentioned playing in Germany. How was the volleyball cultural different from playing overseas versus playing here in the States?
I think the biggest thing is that when you're overseas, your job is to play volleyball, and you live, breathe, you train sometimes 3 times a day, and so the culture there is really oriented towards you're just playing volleyball. Where if you're looking at college or like college in the United States, I mean, you're a student athlete and you're a student first, right? Um, and so it's really kind of it's very different, and there's a lot of your focus is very much split between school and sports. And so I think that that was one of the biggest things where even now, if you look at what's going on in the VLA, I mean, we don't really have any players that don't have a job outside of, I mean, we're just not at that level to where we have those player first players. I mean, no teams are practicing 5 days a week or doing 2 a days or anything like that. So I think that's really the biggest culture shift between Europe and or overseas and in the United States at this point, is that we're just not quite there yet to where we're paying the players to be able to just focus on their sport.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's one of the biggest things. And then on top of that, I think that the difference in camaraderie when you see someone all day, every day. I mean, it is very much becomes a job. Some of those guys you don't exactly enjoy rubbing elbows with every single day, but some of them you get a pretty long lasting bond with them, and a lot of my teammates back in Europe, even though it's been 12 years now since I've played over there, I still feel like I can shoot them a text message, and we'll just pick back up right where we left off, and still good personalities and everything like that between us. And when you're in the trenches, for me, for 3 years with some of these guys, you just have that connection.
Yeah, I definitely could understand it being a full time job, especially having to see the same group of players all the time. I can tell you right now, my team volume, if I had to deal with them all day, every day, it wouldn't be a pleasant opportunity for me as well as a pleasant experience for them, vice versa, because I know if they kind of get tired of me always shooting the messages out to the group chats and bugging them about, hey, who wants to play this, who wants to do this, where are we going to go here, where are we going to go there. So I can only imagine how it was, being around this group of guys, all day, every day while in season.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was great times for the most part, especially because we had very successful seasons when I was over there, and it was a lot of fun just being in that group and the camaraderie that we had. Just being able to know that you can trust your teammates like I did with my Sheetorf guys. It was really great experience, and I just learned a lot about a team dynamic like that, and I just felt that that was a stronger experience than even like I had in college to be able to really bond with that group of guys.
Yeah, that's always, good to build that long-term, relationships. I think, at a couple of events that we went to, like when we went to USAV Nationals, as well as going to the different cups and championships, I think our team, had an opportunity to build that small bit of camaraderie, especially if you're only seeing each other maybe once a month currently. But yeah, having an opportunity to really build that long lasting relationship, I can imagine is very, very beneficial. And probably, not necessarily playing overseas, but building those good long-standing relationships is probably what led to you guys being able to create the VLA. So let's circle back to the VLA a little bit and the creation of it. If you don't mind sharing, like how did you and the group that originated the VLA know that now was the time to create this league? What was that conversation like?
Well, one of the biggest things that happened with PVL started in I think 2013 or 2012, and it brought a lot of hope to professional volleyball in the United States. It's something that people have tried, and it just hadn't worked out at that point. And coming off of Loy Ball winning the Olympics in 2008, being Champions League MVP, I think in 2010, and then him making the decision to come back to the United States and saying, "Hey, like we're going to try to make this happen." It really got everyone on board with it because there's a lot of skepticism around it before, and so USAV endorsed it, and the PVL started, and it seemed like it was the right track. There was some money involved in the league, and I just feel like USAV, their main focus was just let's just have these national events. It was just one event every year. It wasn't a formal league like we were hoping for and what we were expecting, and so it's kind of fizzled out. Eventually, some of the funding got pulled, and they dropped the league altogether in I think 2016 or 17. And so it was like, well, we had something going there. We were starting to kind of put it together. And so then the MVA started, and it was kind of the same way where it's like, all right, well, we're going to try to do a little more than what PVL did. And the issue there was that there was some financial backing issues and whatnot for the league. They ran into some problems on the high end or on the management side there. Once us and the VLA kind of recognized that there were some inconsistencies there, we decided, okay, well, maybe we need a different structure. And one of the things that was happening is that PVL and MVA were very exclusive. PVL was every team, there was only one team per region, and the USAV has, I think, maybe 33 regions or 32 regions overall throughout the country. They only had one team allowed per region. And if you look at where volleyball's at, you look at Southern California, you look at Chicago, there are so many great teams in those areas, and you're going to have one team in that area. It doesn't make sense, right? Even MLB has two baseball teams in Chicago because that's how good Chicago is. So you look at that kind of mindset, and it's like, okay, well, this kind of didn't make sense because it's very exclusive and everything was on the regions, and there wasn't a lot of private investing possibilities there. And then the MVA started, and they limited it to 6 teams, and it was kind of along the same lines as where it's like, okay, well, here's these teams, and it's like, okay, well, I mean, what about everybody else? And so we kind of recognized that the VLA, when we started, it's like, okay, well, how do we get everyone involved? How do we make it to where it's not all about these are our teams and they're better than everybody else because we said so? Because there's a lot of great teams, a lot of great volleyball players out there, and a lot of great managers out there that were just unfounded. Like, I mean, what makes these 6 so special that these others are not? And so I mean, what we put together with the VLA was a way for everyone to be involved, whether you're a manager and you love the sport, whether you're someone who's just kind of an investor and you want to see the sport grow, whether you're not a D1 player, maybe you just played in high school and you played some club volleyball somewhere in college and you just want to continue to play because you like to play at a high level. It's like, how do we get them involved as well? Because there was a huge gap in the adult volleyball community. It was either this, you go to Europe, national team, that accounts for about 150 players in the entire country, and we've got tens of thousands of adult players. So we were just basically trying to figure out how do we get everyone involved. So that's how we came up with the concept of the VLA to basically incorporate everyone while not losing focus of our goal is professional volleyball.
So what struggles did the VLA have when you first started?
The most difficult struggle at the very beginning was definitely COVID. We had a pretty solid first year planned out. We had a partnership with USAV. We were hoping to be at nationals. Kind of, we'll get into that when we talk a little bit more about the USAV deal that we have. But we had some things going that once COVID happened, it basically eliminated our initial first season. We did do one tournament that summer, which was really the VLA Kickoff Classic, which was an awesome event. It was really cool to go out and play, since we were all away from the sport for months at that point. And so that was really the big thing that really kind of knocked us back a little bit. And definitely the biggest challenge. After that, I think that we pretty much got off to the right step following that, and then going into 2021 we really got going. I would say the biggest hurdle that we have at this point is, along with all pro sports starting out, or pro sports leagues, is just the financial side of things. We were very fortunate to come up with a model that has a very I don't want to say minimal, but we definitely do the best we can on the lowest budget possible. And we try not to overextend ourselves, and we try not to overpromise. And that was one thing that both the PVL and NVA did, is they promised this and they promised that, and so we start to expect it. But with the VLA, try to keep it as real as possible and say, hey, look, this is what we're trying to do, but this is what we know that we can guarantee, and this is what you'll get. And we do the best that we can with that. And sometimes actually we still under deliver on those things, and we apologize to everyone out there, because we know that everyone out there in the VLA, top to bottom, is working hard to try to make this successful. But we definitely try to make it the best experience possible. We're just doing the best we can to build a league that everyone deserves.
Yeah, I would say, starting, a league up around COVID time and then being able to be where you guys are currently, I would say it's definitely a big achievement, and it shows a testament and the work ethic that you all put into to really develop and grow this league. Starting from where you were and then now developing into this partnership with the USAV. Let's kind of pivot into that partnership. Can you share some details on what all this partnership with USAV entails?
Yeah. So, I mean, to get into some of the specifics and what I'm able to share, one of the big things is that now with USAV, we're covered under their USAV insurance. All the players and teams are, and so we have a. We'll actually have a VLA USAV membership specific for the athletes, which is really good, because again, insurance is really important, especially when we're playing at a lot of juniors events and whatnot. They do their background checks, and so there's a lot of important things that go into that, and that was something necessary for both the league and USAV to have, to make sure this partnership worked out. The biggest thing that we can say is that we're finally able to put in some prize money towards our teams and our championships, as we'll be playing together at USAV Nationals this year. And there will be a separate Tier 1 division for all the 12 Tier 1 teams, and then the 16 Tier 2 teams, or the top 16 Tier 2 teams, will be playing in the Open division, which also will have the opportunity for them to win some prize money. And then the bottom 8 Tier 2 teams will be playing in the AA division, with whatever Tier 3 teams are trying to move up and get promoted to Tier 2. The fact that, and then also the women's division as well, will be playing, women's championship will be cohesive with the women's open division as well. So yeah, so I mean, the fact that we were able to put that together, it will bring the VLA into the center stage at USAV Nationals. There's I don't know how many thousands of athletes and players there every single year, but I mean, five-day event in Orlando, Florida this year, and so VLA will be at the feature of that, and we're excited to finally be on that stage. And one thing that, it's funny, because one thing that kind of led to this decision is our VLA championship match last year at LVC and Chicago Iceman. Of course, I'm there watching. I was actually flipping the score on that game, and one of the best matches I've ever seen from a volleyball match. And the unfortunate thing was there was just not a ton of eyes watching it. And the tier two championship and tier two promotion tournaments had both kind of wrapped up, and so there were some players that were kind of watching and hanging around and whatnot. Being at Spooky Nook in Cincinnati, it's a great place, great facility. However, didn't attract a whole lot of spectators to that event. So the fact that we're going to have a tier one championship, a tier two championship, these big important matches in front of, we're basically bringing the championships to the people now instead of expecting them to just come to us. And I think that is something that is very, very much needed because the environment for such a competitive match, again, one of the best matches I've ever seen with LVC giving Chicago Icemen the first loss of the season to claim that championship. I mean, it was a huge match, great rivalry. But yeah, it was really unfortunate that not a lot of people were there live watching it because it was just such an impressive match. It's too bad because, and that's something that we really felt we needed to do a better job for the players, for the league, and I think that this USAV partnership is going to do that for them.
Yeah, it's going to be a great opportunity to play down there at USAV Nationals. Is there an opportunity to kind of dive more into the potential payout structures for USAV Nationals for Tier 1 and Tier 2?
Not at this point. We don't have that solidified ourselves yet, so it's really
Okay.
hard to do that. I know that USAV last year, I think that they paid out. I couldn't tell you what but yeah, I think you could look it up what USAV paid for their open division, and there will be that will be very comparable to the tier two payout.
Okay.
Tier one payout will be a little bit different. We will be the league will decide that. USAV is going to be deciding the open payouts for the tier two championships and the women's championships.
Okay. So you mentioned that you really want, the more eyes to be on that high level volleyball, to be on the championships like you've seen with LVC and you've seen with Iceman. What are some areas you think could help generate more eyes, generate more viewership, generate more live audiences in person to see this high level volleyball here in the states, whether it be in Orlando, whether it be in Chicago, Wisconsin, Arizona, California, New York, Ohio, wherever. What do you think? We need to do to get more to generate more interest, more buzz, and get more people in seats.
Well, that's actually one thing that we've really taken steps towards, and we were fortunate at the very beginning to be partnered with JVA, AAU, USAV because we've been allowed to go and compete at their events and play in front of those juniors players. And that's something that if you come to an Arizona event and you play, and we play at Volleyball Festival every year, and sometimes at the University of Phoenix Stadium, or now it's State Farm Stadium, sorry, where the Cardinals play. And I mean, we generate such good crowds out here. I think that there's a handful of teams and handful of communities that really do a good job of bringing in those spectators and being able to have that presentation for to see the league. And more, it's funny because I talk about this at our at our volleyball festival events. There was a good time where or even now, a lot of juniors players year after year, they look forward to coming and seeing the Ascension guys play and in the Sun City IX guys play because they've seen them every single year, and they'll come and talk to us. And I don't know how many players will come up to me and say, "Hey, do you remember me?" And I'm always like, "Heck yeah, I do." I don't, couldn't tell you one face from the next, but and so many of them will come up to me and just say, "Hey, remember when you peppered with me, or you did that?" And it's just like, "Yeah, yeah, I remember. How you doing? How's your club season?" And those interactions go such a long way for just building the VLA. And they see the Ascension logo, they see the IX logo, they see the VLA logo, and so that has been really something that has helped us grow quite a bit. And I actually think that one thing we can do is, and now with the USAV partnership, we have more opportunities to be in front of the juniors players and to continue to build those connections with those players. Because when we do that, it's a personal connection. And when someone has a personal connection to Ascension or IX, they become fans of that team. And it's actually really neat to see because when we do our event, we'll have Valor there, we'll have Los Muertos, we'll have IX, we'll have Ascension, and we all play each other. And a lot of teams are now, or a lot of the juniors players will start to kind of shift and they follow Valor or Los Muertos as their team or and so it's really just trying to play in front of those younger players so that they're growing up and seeing these teams play, and that's really how you develop your fan base. And so we've seen a little bit of that come back to us. Our viewership is generally pretty good, but it's still something that you have to develop over time. You can't just come in. Like, you look at every single major sports league. How long did it take them before everyone was watching? Before it became a national thing? Before, the investors were really putting money into it? It took time. And so we're at the early stages of that. We're in year 6 right now. It's not, something that you just throw a bunch of money at and decide, okay, everyone come watch us, be a fan. It takes time to develop that. And then in volleyball in itself is just a sport that's still consistently growing. The men's game being the fastest growing sport in the country right now. We're going to be, featured on that. At this point, we really don't have any competitors on that end. And from my perspective, hopefully we don't get any. And we'll just continue to grow from there. The women's side is a little different. Obviously, there's new league after new league popping up because that's really where the money's at this point. We talk about the VLA board all the time. We hope one of them is successful because the goal is to have a professional league in the United States. Whether it's us, whether it's PVF, whether it's LOVB, we just want something to work and stick, and it's just something that hasn't happened before. And the fact that we have 4 or 5 initiatives, yeah, it's just bringing more eyes to the sport, and that's all we can ask for at this point.
Yeah, I would say, speaking back to, how long it takes, pro leagues to really grow. There are times in the NBA, early on that, players were getting traded for things like washing machines. I know, like Kyle Korver, he joked about it quite a bit that he was traded for a coffee machine. So, really, growing leagues, it takes a lot of hard work, and I really appreciate, the work that you guys are putting in and, helping the league grow, getting more eyes, doing the grassroots events, going to the JVA, the USAV, the AAU events, party with them, letting the kids come and actually see high level volleyball play. I remember we did one last year, and I talk about this all the time. We went to St. Louis. The Stallions were hosting an event, and we didn't have a really good day. But we had a lot of people actually gather around and watch us play, and it didn't turn out too well that day for us. But they at least got to see it. So getting an opportunity to play in front of those young up and coming athletes so that they have something to look forward to one day because hey, not everyone can go to the MLB, the NBA, the NFL, so there's another option for people to play high level athletics here in stateside. So I really appreciate what you guys are doing to really grow the game.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that astounded me because, with our league is generated to accommodate everybody. There is an opportunity for everyone to compete. And I remember when I was playing in Germany, and I played obviously on the first team for FC Schutorf, but we had I think 5 or 6 other teams in FC Schutorf that all played in different leagues, and in how it broke down regionally. I mean, obviously the Bundesliga 1 is in the entire country. A Bundesliga 2 is separated by North and South, and then you get to Drittliga, which is in basically quadrants. And then so it all breaks down into where, yeah, there's all these different leagues all within the Deutsche Volleyball Association or DVVV or whatever it is. So we looked at what was being successful in these other leagues. And I think the misconception with the United States and where, even though we're hoping PVF and all these other our leagues are trying to, jump from top down, we are trying to build it from ground up. And that's what we recognize with some of these other leagues, the Polish league, the German league, is that there's the possibility to play at every level. And I mean, I remember watching and supporting some of our fifth league or fifth team matches and whatnot because we would work them and we'd sometimes score keep and things like that. And just seeing those guys out there and just playing against other teams comparable to them that were just playing the next town over, and it was just a lot of fun. It's fun to see those matches. You get a little bit invested. You you talk a little crap to the other team because they live in the next town over, and so it's a good environment and it's a competitive environment, and I think that we're finally starting to get to that point. Right now we got the tier one, tier two, tier three, and eventually once we can establish a little bit more structure in the tier three, maybe there is that tier four, and so there's a lot of levels to it, and it's very much limited only by however whoever wants to play. So we really enjoy the fact that there's so many teams out there that just want to have a team, go out and compete and try their luck in some of these big tournaments and just be active. I mean, we have teams. Want to say I think 39 states or 38 states right now. We have teams that are interested coming from Canada. We've had some teams from Mexico reach out. And so the fact
Nice,
that we have teams that are just all over the place, and the big shout out, OKC F5 just qualified for the West Division Cup last weekend.
nice.
A team from Oklahoma is going to be playing, representing Oklahoma and playing in the West Division Cup. So it's just things like that where we've expanded into places where, I mean, if you think about adult volleyball, I'm sorry, you just don't think about Oklahoma. But here they are, they put a team together, they go and they have a successful tournament. Now they're competing in the West Division Cup, and that's what we wanted, is to be able to expand across the country, because that's what our VLA is, reaching all these different areas. There's all these pockets that we're trying to unite to create this league.
Let's dive into the different levels of the BLA. Can you dive into each tier, what it takes to go from each tier, from tier three to tier two to tier one. Also, another thing too is just dive into the benefits for the team's benefits for the players to play in each tier and each higher tier.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we could start with tier three. We really kind of look at this as I hate to use the word recreation, but I mean, it is kind of what it is. It's really a play at your own pace. And you can sign up for tournaments. You can just play any kind of event that you would like to play. And we try not to push the expenses on teams too often, right? They pay a league fee, and then after that, they're good to play as much or as little as they want to, and that's what we want. We want teams that are looking to compete at what they're capable of. One thing, when we were with the MVA, we got set with a lot of expenses that we weren't prepared for, which were, I pretty much put a handful of us in a substantial amount of debt. And so that's one thing we don't want to do, is have people breaking the bank because they have to play in a VLA event. We want it to be, okay, we can afford to go do this, so let's go ahead and do it. Let's go ahead and play. Not, hey, you got to do this or you can't play in our league. So we really try to keep that option as available as possible and allow teams to just play to their convenience. And a big team that really recognizes, and a great team program, everything, is River City Flow. They understand exactly where they're at with their roster, what they're capable of. Sam Albus is the head. He's their a team rep manager. He's also the head coach at, what North Carolina school is that? Elise McCrae. So he plays. He coaches all spring, and so he understands what he's capable of doing. And they go out and they have a great showing every single time they show up at a VLA Cup, a VLA Division Cup. They play in a lot of local tournaments around there, but they understand that they're not able to commit to that tier two standard. They can't commit to that tier one standard at this point. And so I mean, there's teams like that, and then there's some teams that just like to go play their local events and like to be a VLA team. And we have a few of those in Arizona, where like Tempe Terrorizers is. We have a handful of like ASU kids that come out and play. And they just like to get out and play against Ascension and play against IX, and they just like to compete. So we have a lot of options there with tier three.
Yeah,
And so yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I would say also shout out to Sam and Lees McRae. I'm actually going to steal one of his players when he moves back home. But yeah, shout out to the tier three teams, and just because they're tier three, don't mean that they can't play, because there's a lot of high level tier three teams out there, such as River City Flow, the Wizards, who knocked us off twice last weekend, as well as my actual, if it was not volume, my favorite team to watch is going to be Austin Jam. So there's a lot of high level tier three teams out there. So just because they're tier three doesn't mean that they can't play, because there is some serious heavy hitters, serious highly quality ball being played with Tier 3 right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And so really the objective with tier 3 is it's a play at your own pace. I mean, however, it is a platform for launching into tier 2 as well, and which is what we are doing. We did it last year. You played in it, won the tournament, the the tier 2 promotion tournament. We'll be moving that to the double A and at USAV Nationals. And so all the tier 3 teams that are interested in earning that promotion, it will be playing in that tournament. So yeah, so it's really just kind of a launching board for teams that are interested in moving up to tier 2 or tier 1, and have that intent, because we like to provide the option for a lot of different goals out there for teams, as whether they're trying to get to just tier 2, whether they're the ultimate goal tier 1. And so that's really the starting point for it all. And then yeah, some teams choose to stay down there for a lot of different reasons. They still have opportunities to earn points, and actually they can still earn tier 1 promotion from tier 3. It's a possibility. It's just not as easy to do so because you do not have the same point opportunities that you do as a tier 2 team.
Yeah, I would say, some of the point opportunities that we have coming up was we do have our divisional event in St. Louis, as well as automatically qualifying for your divisional cup. Getting an opportunity for those 3 point matches is really going to help, build up to get promoted to tier 1.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. The cups and the subdivision events are really where tier 2 teams really get the opportunity to gobble up a bunch of points. I think there's 12 overall in the subdivision events. You can get, I think, up to 18 if it's played right at a division cup, and you play a handful of tier 1 teams, and you knock them off. And if you can win that cup, I think Stallions did it last year when they played against in the Central Cup. They beat, I think they beat the Unicorns, and they beat uh,
Pineapple.
Pineapple in the finals. And so the fact that they were able to do that, I mean, they pulled out one season. I mean, they got a cup win and 69 points out of tier 3. So if you can play those cups, and really do well there, you get a lot of points. And then obviously the VLA Cup, which again, if you can really make a good run, and you can go 5-1, or six, 5-1, or 4-2, play knock off a tier 1 team or two, and then you're sitting at 16 points just from one event. And it's really the fast track to get up and earn those points and get up in the rankings.
Absolutely. But we're looking for the shortcut. So we're actually shooting for
Going for
actual
the cup
cups.
wins. Yeah. Yeah, the very fast track is just, you gotta win 4 cups and you go straight to tier 1. So, and then obviously the tier 2 championship or the open championship this year will be, that tier 1, or sorry, they get the cup win. You'll get a cup win there too. So, unfortunately for volume, winning the promotion tournament did not equal out to a cup win. I know you're upset about that. I apologize to the guys. But yes, that's kind of like the same as winning the double A at nationals. You don't quite get the championship there, but yeah. So and it's very entertaining, exciting to see a lot of drive with the tier 2 teams. They really push the tier 1 teams. Actually, they beat them very often, especially those ones that are not the Chicago Icemen or Boston Bounce or Team LVC. Like those are usually the stronger ones to knock off. But the fact that pretty much any cup is up for grabs at any time, because the tournaments are so deep. There's not a lot of teams that are weak teams in these events. First of all,
Right.
the tier 3 teams got to qualify. They got to win a tournament and then go play this. So they're already battle hardened. They're going in and they've got nothing to lose. They just get out there and play, and it's just great competitive volleyball all the way across the board.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're shooting for 4 this year. We're gonna go for 4, see what we can get. We have the qualifier for the Central Cup next weekend that we're going for, as well as the North Cup, and then the VLA Cup and the championship. So we're gonna see if we can go 4 for 4. And just a word to the wise, who you see playing now is not going to be who's playing in March and May. Stay tuned. Everyone trying to get a read on us. Give me 1 second. Everyone that's trying to get a read on us is going to be hard to really envision how it's going to play out then. But you know what? Let's see if we can knock out all four in one season.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, if you can do it, you earned it, you know. But that's the thing, is the opportunity is there. If someone if a team manager can put together that strong of a roster, and that's kind of why we have the tier system as it is. When we first started the league, we had the 5 teams. It was Rising Tide, Phoenix Ascension, Team Pineapple, Chicago Iceman, Team LVC, and it was okay. Well, how do we expand? What we need more teams, obviously, but what's the process? And at first, it was like, well, my buddy's got a team, or my buddy can put in a team, or this guy can throw in a team, and it's like, okay, so why should that guy get a team, and why should this guy get a team? And so then when we created the entire point structure, we created the cup win structure. We wanted it to be to where if a team can come in and be that dominant and win 4 cups, then absolutely they belong in tier one. We need them in tier one. However, if a team can consistently show up, compete, be successful, earn the point, get to the point barrier, and that's also one thing that we very very much value in the VLA, is the commitment to the league, the consistency of being able to show up and compete and win matches. And so it isn't just all about what team can show up and win a championship. It's also about what team can build their brand, what team can market themselves, what team promotes the VLA and can be a consistent member of our tier one group. So and if you look at it, only team that has done it through winning cups was Sun City IX. All the other teams, Unicorns, Dive, Dogs, all those teams all earned it by getting to the point barrier. And I don't think, maybe Dive had won a cup. I don't think Unicorns ever did, but and I know Dogs never did, but they're still one of the best teams out there because they're consistent and they are able to be at every single event that they're at and perform well. So yeah, so that's why we have the kind of the variation there, and we really like to see that consistency from teams. And there's a handful of teams that have been with us from the beginning. 630 Breeze is a big one. They started in 2021 and they play as much as they can. They don't win every match, but they definitely put up points every tournament. And so they're a team that's like really kind of pushing that boundary. DC Dynasty is another one that, they I think they started 2 years ago, but again, they've had a lot of success and they win a lot of matches and really dominant in their area. And so they're able to gather a lot of those points. So a couple of those teams, just that consistency will go a long way.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean that's definitely something we're looking to show is that we on our end are very going to be consistent, be in every event we can possibly be, but at the same time look to win the hard way by the cup. So we'll see how it goes. And then let's talk about getting that promotion to tier one. You get the 4 cups, or you get the point barrier. For teams, players, what's that big shiny morning that's going to want them to say, "Hey, I need to be up here at tier one."
So again, our goal with the VLA is as much as we love tier two and tier three, and bringing the inclusivity of everything. The goal is professional volleyball, right? And so our goal with the tier one is we like to use the word supplement. And we don't like to be fully, we don't want to say, oh, these teams are paid by the league or this or that or funded by the league or anything like that. Because those teams are very much responsible for their own funding and are gaining sponsorships and running their events to where they're generating revenue consistently. For the most part, the tier one teams do a really good job of that, and that's why they're there. And so they are able to help their players a little bit more and try to help them get to from event to event to perform. And and the league continuing to grow, being more successful, and then earning a handful of really key sponsorships. The Franklin sponsorship was a big deal. USAV is putting a little bit of money into the league. So those types of things lead us to be able to start to give out payouts, and we've been doing a little bit more for the tier one teams on that end. And we have a merchandise revenue, our YouTube channel, things like that go into those teams. So also a couple other sponsorships like Novice gears the tier one teams completely every year, every season. And then the Franklin deal, not only do we get money there, but we also get the they'll send each tier one team about 12 balls every season. So, I mean, just little things like that that contribute to being a tier one team to try to help them so that they can prepare for a little bit more of a traditional season, playing the 20 matches that they play each year on top of the championships, those types of things. So really the goal is for the league to try to supplement the tier one teams so that they're able to eventually become the professional league that we're hoping for. We're hoping that some of these guys can start getting stronger payouts. We're hoping that some of these guys can maybe attract some, lower level national team members and whatnot. So they can stay home and train in the national team gym, but then also play for their respective VLA teams. So those are the goals that we have, and we're making great strides to get there. It's still probably a few years away, but I think this USAV partnership was a big step in the right direction. And again, a few of the sponsorships that we received, Franklin, Novice. I mean, they've really helped kickstart us to move in that direction. So yeah, it's just a step at a time, and we're getting closer and closer every single season. And this season is definitely going to be the best season that we've ever had through and through. And I think there's a lot of anticipation going into the season, and it's going to be very, very exciting. And then on the other side of that, we're also working on the women's side as well, trying to do the exact same thing for them. They're all pushing towards that tier one promotion. Essentially, we view the women's division as a tier two, even though we don't label it that. It's just the women's. But once we get 6 teams reaching the 3 cup or 100-point barrier, then that's when we will establish our first ever women's tier one. So all things moving in that direction. And all we ask is, hey, just show up and compete.
Speaking of the women's game, is there ever going to be like women divisional events like like say we have to go to St. Louis and we have to play, the Stallions as well as Madison Inferno in that tri divisional event? Are the women going to ever get that opportunity to get their events like that too?
Yeah, 100%. So that's what we're working on right now with the women's is we've got the point threshold is 100 points. So and then three cup wins, and there's a couple of teams really pushing the cup wins. Midwest Magic and Sun City IX both have 2 cup wins. So they're kind of all they need is one more, and then they'll be invited to tier one. And then the 100-point barrier threshold is out there, but again, a lot of the teams really got to put in the work. A few teams did really well last year. I know Madison Embers, they're up there pretty high. I think they got 58 points. Phoenix Ascension has, I think, 50 points. DC Dynasty had a good run last year. I think they're in the 30s. So there's a handful of teams that are really pushing it. But again, it comes all down to, okay, if we started a women's league from, okay, we could have done it off of all the tier one teams going, oh, you guys can just have tier one teams for men's and women's. But how fair is that? I mean, it's really not. So we try to keep it as fair as possible to where if you want to earn it, Phoenix Ascension, if we want to earn it, we got to win. We got to make sure that we show that we are deserving of a tier one spot. So yeah, so that's really the objective, and a handful of teams they understand it and they're pushing towards it. There's a lot of teams that are just coming in. We have inquiries every single day, wondering what we're doing here. So once we get our tier one established, the tier two establishes after that, and then we continue just like the men's. We start and have maybe work down to the tier three, and so that's our objective with the women's, is to basically form them under the same structure that the men's is.
Okay. So, let's talk about if a team, a manager, director, if they want to start a VLA team, what would be the process that you would recommend? And what advice would you give someone that's just starting a VLA team?
Number one, got first thing, come up with an original team name. I don't know how many times I've had to tell teams they can't be Team Legion or LVC. I understand there's a lot of clubs out there. I mean, there can only be one Iceman. There's only one volume. But yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is get a group of people that you want to compete with, create a brand, create a team name, and then basically look to start competing. We have tournaments all over the place, and it's really simple. I mean, you just basically sign up. And so, but yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is just understanding that once you kind of get into it, it's actually really competitive for one. I mean, you jumped into it last year and really you jumped in head first, right? A lot of people kind of dip toes in, right? Try to figure out, okay, I'll play here, I'll play there. You jumped in head first in the deep end. I think there was ice on the top of the pool, but but not a lot of managers are like that. Not a lot of managers are go getters to be like, I got to do this. A lot of them are kind of like, well, maybe we'll do this, maybe we won't. Let's just play here or there, which is totally fine. I think that a lot of people are intimidated by the fact that it's actually very easy. It's not a difficult process to get started. I mean, it's just paying a season team fee and establishing your brand to the VLA, saying, "Hey, we're team volume, we're Iowa volume," and then you just basically sign up to different events and compete. And it's as simple as that, really. My biggest thing is just get some players will travel with you and play for a season, and just kind of go from there.
What advice would you give someone to watch out for, or maybe some first year struggles they may encounter?
So one thing that you're going to encounter is that players are not always going to show up, and you may have, and the thing is you want to really cater to the players that do show up, and try to build around that, not necessarily around your best players or the best players that are in your gym at one time. You really want to try to be like, okay, this guy's invested in my team. He's invested in the VLA. He really wants to play. That's the more important guy than the guy who's the superstar who, will show up when they feel like it. And so I think that's one of the biggest struggles teams have is they'll come up with this roster and they'll say, "Hey, look at what I got." And I'll be honest, like to me, that doesn't mean anything to me because until you're got all those guys out there playing on the feet on the playing a season, I mean, it really doesn't matter, right? So I think the biggest thing is just understanding like who's in it with you because they want to actually see your team be successful, or is it they want to play once in a while and they'll kind of do their own thing. So I think that's the biggest thing is that teams run into they'll lose a handful of players, and I'll be honest, a handful of those really good players end up getting picked up by better teams or higher ranking teams, tier two team or even a tier one team. And that's just kind of the nature of the game is that the stronger players are trying to play that higher level. So just understand that, players will come and go. If you're starting and trying to build a franchise, like, in 10 years, are those guys going to be your guys? No, you're going to need to have completely new guys. So
Sure.
just understanding that, it's rosters are very liquid. They're not, it's not something that they're going to be, some guys will hang around for a long time, which is great. Those are guys you want to really have in your corner, but some of the guys will be in it for a season or two, maybe even a match or two, and then that could be it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that's one of the things that we struggled with a lot last year was, being in a position where we could constantly put our best lineup together and have them out there. Unfortunately, you covered it earlier. We're not in a position where this is your only job. As adults, things happen. You have family obligations, work obligations, just personal obligations. I have a wedding here, unfortunately, funeral here, et cetera, where things will pull you away from the opportunity to play with the guys. And I think that was one of the biggest things we struggled with last year too. Is we have guys from a lot of different areas. We have a lot of guys from the Chicago area, a lot of guys from Iowa. Guys come from international to play, and you get the guys that are there every week. They're practicing, they're at every event, the less prestigious events. Maybe we're doing some luau's or just a regular, independent tournament. And those guys are there. But when it's time to play and, the bigger, more prestigious events, the more higher profile guys are there and it kind of pushes everyone to the side. And that did create a lot of friction, within volume, within our group. So, that kind of led me to creating the second team frequency to give those guys an opportunity to keep a more consistent, stable roster and have me kind of stay out of it and, just let those guys play, show up, work hard, and get the ability if they need to one day to come up to volume. So that was a great piece of advice that you given, and it's something that I wish I had last year when we started as well.
Yeah, and that's actually what led to the creation of Sun City IX. We have Los Muertos, now Valor. And so we have all these different programs that are kind of, well, IX is no longer under Ascension, but that were under Ascension or built because we had so many guys in the gym at one time. It's like we want to try to create opportunities for everyone to be able to play it just in Arizona. And so we developed these other teams, and then the tier structure kind of assists with that, where they can play in different events and kind of play in their own events as well, not just, hey, you get to get beat up by the local tier one team, but then they can also go play against other teams in their respective levels. So, but yeah, that is the tough thing, because you do have those guys that are in the gym every single day, and they're working hard, and they just aren't as strong as some of the other players. And so when it comes time to win that important match, you're playing against Team Pineapple, you're going to play your guys to give you the best opportunity to beat Team Pineapple. And it's unfortunate. Those are conversations that you just have to have with some guys that, look, we're bringing them in for this. You're going to get your opportunity here, but you're not going to get that opportunity there. And the one thing I say for players is the best ability is availability, because
Absolutely.
we've had a lot of guys that have had lots of opportunities because they were able to travel, and they I didn't have to shell out a $700 plane ticket for them to get to Fort Wayne. I mean, things like that, and because it's just not in our budget, and they were able to pay their way. And I definitely will respect that and make sure that all our guys get their opportunities to at least compete. And they obviously can't do equal playing time, but I try to do what I call maximized playing time. It's like, yeah, we're gonna get you in as much as we can. But yeah, I mean, but also on them understand. Yeah, I know it's tough as a player, as a competitor, to understand when you're in and day out, and then someone else just comes in and gets that spot. I mean, you hate to see it, and it's really unfortunate. But I mean, it's tough for a young player to have that reality check and go. I mean, it's still tough for me watching Zach Melcher and Scott Weiss setting for Ascension, and I'm over here all like, man, bunch of jerks. But I had to take that step back, because I mean, they're really the guys I mean, they're the stronger players anymore. So, it's just it's tough to come to that reality, but I mean, you have to do it.
Yeah, another piece of advice I would give someone that, as you mentioned, I pretty much jumped in head first, cold ice river plunge, as cold and as head first as you can get. One piece of advice I would give someone if they are looking to, get in and actually play as full a schedule as possible, like I did, it's a grind. It's not, not only is a grind, assembly, make sure we're playing, but, constantly reaching out to people, having them play, hey, are you available this day? You can create the spreadsheet, create the app that they can thumbs up, thumbs down, add it to their calendar. But it's sometimes, you're going to get to, say you guys have to travel Friday, you have a tournament Saturday, you'll get to Thursday, maybe even Friday morning, and someone's like, hey, I got to go. They bailed out of the opportunity. So, I would say have a deep Rolodex, keep a deep roster, and just realize that you are, you're constantly, moving, recruiting 24/7 at this point. So just keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, no, I agree with that fully. Is that you really do have to get a lot of guys. You can't go in there with 10 guys and just start with 10 guys and expect all 10 to show up every single time, unless unless you're paying their way. And even then, I mean, I've had guys where I've had to cancel flights last minute and whatnot that I booked for them, and they're like, oh, I'm just not going to be able to show up this one. And it's just like, you know, come on, like, really? So I mean, yeah, it's like you said, life happens, and it's really tough to make some of these events sometimes, especially with it. There is a lot of informality with VLA, and it's intentionally that way. We're really not trying to uh, make it to where it's a league where you violate and you're reprimanded, and we want you gone type of thing. It's really loose in structure, because we do want to make sure that teams are able to just compete. That's why we expanded the rosters to 25 players,
Can we go
created
to
the tier.
35?
But we opened it up to where there is the tier tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 shared player rule. We have that because we want teams to be able to compete. And yeah, I mean, there's some teams that try to take advantage of those circumstances and whatnot, but for the most part, it's really just made so that a team doesn't have a middle, but they're playing here. They need somebody, but they can pull it. They can pull a guy from Chicago Iceman because he's available, or they can pull a guy from one Milwaukee Dive because he's available, and they're not competing in that tier 2 event. It's so that these teams can just compete and not have it to be where they have to have a libero jumping in there trying to play middle because there's not another guy available. So yeah, so I mean, I think that we keep it loose intentionally, and so I think that there's a lot of ways that you can navigate making sure that you can build your roster properly to where you should be able to compete consistently. And then the other thing too is unless you're tier 1 or tier 2, I mean, tier 3 teams do not have that obligation. They can compete at their own will. So that's also part of the structure. They don't have to play if they don't want to. So if you got a roster and you want to play, yeah, sign up and play. If you don't, then unfortunately, it's not that big of a deal on our end. It's too bad for you guys, but try to find those extra guys somewhere.
Yeah, it's it's always a grind, and it's always something you have to be working on. Let's move on to more some fun questions here. See, what is while competing in VLA, what's been your favorite team to play against?
Favorite team to play against for me personally, or like Ascension, or what do you think?
Yeah, Ascension and both you personally and Ascension.
Both. Ascension, I've really liked the competitive matches against Team LVC. I think that it's one where somehow we always find a way to play each other in either the VLA Cup or in the VLA championships. And we've had really, really consistent matches against them where we've gone back and forth quite a bit. And I'll say them, like we played Chicago Iceman. I think we beat them once in about 10, 12 tries. So Team LVC is such a good program and such a great team all the time. The fact that we're able to get in there and have a really consistent battle with them, I think that really has been a really good non-division rivalry. And because I mean, we talk, we could easily just say our biggest rival obviously is Rising Tide, but I mean, as a rivalry, that's just hate right there. So we don't look forward to playing them because we got to play them 4 times every year. So, but yeah, I'd say Team LVC is definitely the one that I think that we as a program like to play the most. For myself personally, I just gotta. I mean, I haven't really played Tier 1 since I guess the Cup. Actually, my last game was against Team LVC, but and we won that one in 5. I was playing libero that match, but my favorite was playing against Team Pineapple in the kickoff classic. Actually, that was actually my first time ever beating Volleyball. I was setting, we were head to head against each other, and that was probably my biggest VLA moment right there. Just one of my biggest moments in volleyball ever. Was able to go head to head against Olympic gold medalist, the greatest of all time, and able to get a W out of it. And so that was probably my personal favorite. And then just playing Pineapple, playing them, they're such respectful guys. They always have a good mentality. We have a good relationship with them, and we've always had ever since the PVL days. And so I think that was definitely my personal favorite playing against them.
Who do you enjoy beating the most?
Absolutely Rising Tide. Every time we play against them, Dogs was in our division last year. They're now in the Central. So now Sun City IX is in our division. But playing against Rising Tide and beating Rising Tide has always been number one objective. No matter what, that's number one.
Who's been the hardest hitter you've seen? Um,
In VLA, hardest hitter. Ooh, that's a tough one. Will Kraft, when he was with Chicago Iceman, he could hit the ball pretty hard. Actually, man, I'm not gonna remember his name. There was a play in River City Flow, had an overpass and their right side, and I'm gonna have to reach out to Rob Sinclair on this one because he'll remember it. I got the clip engraved in my head, but he hit an overpass 1 foot line. It was about 2 feet from hitting the ceiling. It was the most impressive bounce I've ever seen, and I'd have to say that was probably the best bounce I've ever seen. But as far as attackers go, the other one, Blake Leeson, he also really hit the ball hard. Playing libero against him and him hitting some balls at me, that wasn't my favorite. But yeah, so I'd have to say those guys, Will Kraft, Blake Leeson. And then yeah, I'm gonna have to find out who that River City Flow right side was, because it wasn't Sam Albus, it was another their opposite that played in that one. Not that Sam isn't great. That was that bounce and look, and then on top of that, the coach for McKendree,
Oh,
Nikki, is that her name? Nikki Sandlin, I think maybe. Anyway, she was commentating in that match and was just like, "Whoa, like what did I just see?" And so when she's impressed, it's something impressive. But yeah, I have to go with those.
what about the best setter that you've seen in the VLA so far?
Best setter in the VLA so far. I mean, my goat VLA Loy's obviously the best, right? But if you look at other setters that aren't Loy, and that are a little bit more younger and spry, I would have to say Joby Ramos has been my personal favorite so far, and yeah, I'd have to say Joby Ramos from Team LVC.
Okay. And one more question here before I let you go. What do we have to do so that we volume can get access to the VLA YouTube page?
The VLA
We want to
YouTube
take
page.
control.
Oh man, you're gonna have to. I don't know who you're gonna have to bark up on those orders. I think Rob Sinclair's in charge of that one, so you're gonna have to reach out to him on that one. But no, I mean that's something that we actually we've taken a few steps back after the last season, because we have basically putting together a plan to revamp it pretty aggressively this coming year, and so it will be something that the VLA YouTube channel is gonna definitely pick up here once the Tier 1 season starts in January. So yeah, so it'll get there soon enough.
Yeah, yeah, we're looking forward to it. Can't wait to see new content that's up there, and hopefully you'll see us up there one day.
You'll be there. We'll have your matches for sure on there.
Well, Vince, real quick before we get out, please feel free to give a shout out if someone wants to reach out, sponsor VLA, sponsor you guys, or if someone wants to sign up to be a VLA team.
Yeah, anyone can contact me. I'll do the best I can to get back to you in a timely fashion. I get hundreds of emails every single day, so sifting through those. But vince.zanzucchi@usavla.com. And then I can steer you in the right direction. And I know I'm doing a lot of onboarding right now with a lot of different teams, and so just bear with me right now. We're trying to get you set up as soon as we can so that you guys can compete. But unfortunately, we had a lot of waiting until USAV was able to announce our partnership, and get all that taken care of. And now that we have that partnership out, we're ready to hit the ground running and get everyone going.
All right. Well, Vince, we thank you so much again for taking the time to speak with us today. And everyone else, well, thanks so much for tuning in. And remember, play loud.
Appreciate you.